Welcome back to the deep dive. It is really good to have you here with us. So today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're taking a hard look at the calendar, and frankly, it is a little startling.
It is.
It's February 8th, 2026, and the document we're about to tear apart, it dropped just about a month ago on January 9th.
It did. And let's be honest, usually when we look at government documents, they're dry, they're just full of jargon, and they're pretty much destined for a dusty filing cabinet somewhere. This one, this one feels different.
It feels radioactive, yeah. We are looking at a memorandum. The subject line is Artificial Intelligence Strategy for the Department of War. And yes, for anyone who hasn't been paying attention to the rebranding, you heard that right. It says Department of War, not Department of Defense.
Which is a massive signal right out of the gate. I mean,
Yeah.
that name change wasn't just cosmetic. Defense is reactive. It implies you're just, waiting to be hit so you can block. War is active. It implies you were going out to impose your will. And this document, this is the instruction manual for how they plan to do that using AI.
Exactly. So here's the setup for you. We have this memo. It's from the Secretary of War. It's addressed to, senior Pentagon leadership, commanders, basically everyone who matters. And the subject is Accelerating America's Military AI Dominance. But looking at the text, this isn't just a tech update, is it? It's not like, hey, we bought some new laptop.
Oh, far from it. This is a declaration of intent. It is a declaration of a race. When you read through this, and we're going to go through it literally section by section like we're teaching a masterclass on it, you realize the language has totally shifted.
It has.
We're seeing terms like wartime footing. We're seeing AI first. We're seeing a complete rejection of the slow, methodical pace the Pentagon is famous for.
It feels so urgent. Reading it, I got that sense of, I don't want to say panic, but definitely aggressive acceleration. It feels like they realized they were losing a race they didn't even know they were running.
Or maybe they realized the race has changed tracks entirely. The memo explicitly states that AI is going to redefine the character of military affairs over the next decade. That isn't a small statement.
Not at all.
That means the way we fight, the way we deter, the way we plan, it's all up for grabs. And if you get this wrong, you don't just have a slightly worse military, you have an obsolete one.
So here's our plan for this deep dive. We're going to put on our instructor hats. Imagine we're standing at the front of a lecture hall, maybe at the War College, and you, the listener, you're the student.
Right.
We're going to walk through this strategy document exactly as it is laid out, from the strategic vision at the top all the way down to the nitty-gritty of the projects they're funding. And we're going to ask the hard questions. Is this actually possible, or is this just more PowerPoint fantasy?
And we should probably start with the mission statement, or at least what they're calling the core directive. The memo opens by citing President Trump's Executive Order 14179. It says the policy is to sustain and enhance America's global AI dominance. And the reasons given are fascinating. Human flourishing, economic competitiveness, and national security.
It connects military dominance directly to human flourishing. That's a bold linkage to make right up front.
It is. It's the classic peace through strength argument, but updated for the Silicon Age. But the military-specific directive is what we really need to focus on. The Secretary directs the department to become an AI-first warfighting force.
An AI-first force.
And he adds this phrase, from front to back.
From front to back. So not just the cool drones at the front, but the guys doing the paperwork at the back.
Precisely. And that is usually where these big initiatives fail, right? You get cool tech on the battlefield, but the procurement office is still using, fax machines and triplicate forms.
Yeah.
This strategy says, no, the whole thing changes. The back office has to be as fast and as smart as the front line.
Okay, so let's unpack Section 1. This is the strategic vision and the 4 pillars. The memo talks about a transformation, but it says this transformation is fueled by something very specific. It says it's fueled by the commercial sector.
And this is a crucial admission. I mean, think about the Cold War. Who invented the internet? DARPA. Who invented GPS?
The military.
The military.
Right.
Who built the first supercomputers? The government.
So the government led and the private sector followed.
Exactly. But this memo admits that the accelerating pace of commercial AI innovation is coming out of the private sector. The military isn't leading the innovation anymore. They're trying to catch the wave. They are acknowledging that, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, they're all moving faster than the Pentagon labs.
That's a humbling admission for an organization that prides itself on total superiority. It also says the U.S. military must build on its lead established during President Trump's first term. So there's a political continuity argument being made here.
There is.
But let's look at the how. The memo lists 4 pillars of execution. I really want to break these down because they seem to form the skeleton of the entire strategy.
Right. If you want to know how the Department of War plans to actually do this, it's these 4 points. It's the whole ball game.
The first one is unleashing experimentation.
Which sounds fun, but in a military context, that could be chaotic. It says they want to use America's leading models department-wide. And here's the key phrase. They want to reward AI-first reconceptions of legacy approaches.
Reconceptions. That's fancy talk for blow up the old way of doing things.
There it is. It means looking at a process, say how we schedule maintenance for a tank, and asking, okay, how would an AI do this? And if the AI can do it better, you don't just add the AI to the old process. You delete the old process entirely.
But that requires a culture that really tolerates failure, doesn't it? Experimentation means things are going to go wrong. And the military, as an institution, hates when things go wrong.
That is the fundamental friction point.
Eh.
They are asking for a startup mentality inside a zero-defect culture. That is going to be a massive, massive clash.
Okay, so the second pillar, eliminating bureaucracy. Now, I feel like I've heard every government official say they want to cut red tape since, I don't know, the beginning of time.
Sure.
It's the standard political applause line. What's different here?
Well, the language is much more aggressive. It talks about aggressively identifying and eliminating bureaucratic barriers. But look at the specific wording they use. It calls those barriers vestigial.
Vestigial.
It calls them vestiges of legacy information technology.
Vestigial, like a tailbone, something that used to be useful but is now just useless weight you're carrying around.
Exactly. It's treating bureaucracy not as some necessary evil, but as obsolete tech that needs to be uninstalled and deleted. It implies that all that paperwork was the technology of the 1950s. AI is the technology of the 2020s, so we're swapping paperwork for code.
Okay, that brings us to the third pillar, focusing investment.
This is the smart play. It says, don't try to do everything. Leverage your asymmetric advantages. And it lists them out. Computing, capital markets, and this is the big one. Combat-proven operational data from 2 decades of military and intelligence operations.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, no other military has been as active as the U.S. military for the last 20 years. We have more data on how war actually works.
And in the age of AI, data is fuel. It's everything. Think about it. China hasn't fought a major ground war in decades. Their data is theoretical. It's from exercises, from simulations.
Right.
The U.S. data is from Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, special operations across Africa. We know what happens when a truck hits an IED. We know how supply lines actually break in the desert.
So the argument is, our training data is bloodier, it's clearer, and it's more accurate.
Which means our models should be more realistic. If you train a model on a simulation, it just learns the rules of the game. If you train it on combat data, it learns the chaos of reality.
And finally, the fourth pillar, and this is what really leads us into the meat of the document. Pace-setting projects, or PSPs.
Right. They aren't just saying, everyone go do AI. They are picking specific winners, specific projects that are designed to demonstrate speed and ethos. They want these to be the examples everyone else in the department looks up to.
Before I get to the specific projects, though, I have to mention the money, because the memo mentions a specific funding source with a very unique name. I chuckled when I read it, but the check is real.
It is very real.
It refers to the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Yep, capitalized just like that. One big beautiful bill.
It sounds like something a real estate developer would say, not a Secretary of War.
It's clearly branding. It's a message, but the implication is massive. It implies a singular large appropriation from Congress, totally distinct from the usual messy budget cycle. It's a war chest specifically for this transformation.
It also mentions a joint acceleration reserve for budget flexibility.
Basically a slush fund. In the normal military budget, if you have money for tank parts, you cannot spend it on software engineers. It is illegal. A reserve allows them to move money quickly to where it's actually working. If Project A is failing, they can kill it and move the cash to Project B in days, not years.
Okay, so we have the vision, AI first, front to back. We have the money, the big beautiful bill. Now let's look at where that money is actually going. Section 2 covers the pace-setting projects, or PSPs. There are 7 of them total, and we need to go deep here because these 7 projects basically tell us what the next war is going to look like.
Absolutely. These aren't random. They cover the entire spectrum of warfare.
The first category is warfighting. These are the pointy end of the spear. And the memo sets a really high standard for these PSPs. Single accountable leaders, aggressive timelines, and monthly demonstrations.
Monthly. In
And
the Pentagon, that's unheard of,
that's what I thought. Usually a program review happens, what, once a year?
if you're lucky. Or at milestones. Milestone A, milestone B. Those can be 3 years apart. Monthly demonstrations mean they want to see code running and hardware moving every 4 weeks.
Right.
It puts the fear of God into the program managers.
Let's look at Warfighting Project 1. It's called Swarm Forge.
Great name. Very sci-fi.
The concept is a competitive mechanism. The goal is to iteratively discover, test, and scale novel ways of fighting with and against AI. But look at the team composition. It says it combines America's elite warfighting units with elite technology innovators.
This is that cultural experiment I was talking about. You were taking Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Air Force combat controllers, people who are physically elite and tactically brilliant, and you're locking them in a room with the best AI architects and coders from Silicon Valley.
Why do that? Why not just have the geeks build the drone and mail it to the SEALs?
Because the geeks don't know what it's like to be shot at, and the SEALs don't know what the code is capable of. If you separate them, you get a product that looks great in a lab but doesn't work in the field. If you put them together in the forge, you get rapid iteration. The SEAL says, I need a drone that can clear that room before I enter. The coder says, okay, I can do that, but I need 24 hours to retrain the vision model.
And the swarm part implies volume. We aren't talking about one big predator drone.
No, not at all. We're talking about hundreds, maybe thousands of small, cheap, autonomous systems moving like a flock of birds or a swarm of bees. The strategic shift here is from few and expensive like an F-35 to many and cheap.
Right.
If you lose 50 drones in a swarm, who cares? You send the next wave. If you lose an F-35, it's a national tragedy.
The memo also mentions fighting against AI.
Which is critical, because if we are building swarms, you can bet our adversaries are too. Swarm Forge is also about figuring out how to survive when the sky suddenly turns black with thousands of enemy drones.
Moving on to Warfighting Project 2, Agent Network.
This is where we get into the brain of the operation, so to speak.
It says the goal is unleashing AI agent development, and the scope is huge. From campaign planning to kill chain execution.
Okay, let's pause on kill chain. That sounds intense, but it's a technical term. It's the sequence. Find, fix, track, target, engage, assess.
Find the enemy, lock on, track them, decide to shoot, and then see if you hit them.
Right. Historically, that process could take days. In the Gulf War, it took hours. Agent Network wants to compress that entire process into seconds.
But it says AI agents. What is an agent in this context? It's not just a chatbot like ChatGPT, is it?
No, not at all. A chatbot answers questions. An agent takes action. An agent is software that has permission to do things in the real world. It can log into a satellite, task it to take a picture, analyze that picture, identify a tank, and crucially recommend a weapon system to destroy it.
That sounds incredibly powerful, but also a little terrifying. AI-enabled battle management. Are we talking about removing the human from the loop?
The memo uses the term decision support.
Yeah.
That usually means the human is on the loop or in the loop. The AI says, I have found a target, I have a missile ready, do you authorize launch? But if the AI does all the work up to that final millisecond, the human is basically just a rubber stamp. The pressure to agree is immense.
And the pressure to trust the AI will be enormous. If the AI says, launch now or we lose the window, is a human really going to say, hold on, let me double check the data?
That's the risk. Speed is the weapon, but speed can also induce error.
Warfighting Project 3 is called Ender's Foundry.
A direct reference to Ender's Game. The military absolutely loves that book.
Which is pretty appropriate because the goal here is accelerating AI-enabled simulation.
Right. In the book, the kids learn to fight by playing a simulation that turns out to be real. Here the idea is SimDev and SimOps feedback loops.
Can you explain SimDev? Is this like a flight simulator on steroids?
It's way, way bigger than that. Imagine a perfect digital twin, a simulation of the entire Pacific theater, every ship, every plane, every satellite, but also the weather, the logistics, the fuel consumption. You use AI to run that simulation 10 million times overnight.
Like Doctor Strange in Infinity War, looking at 14 million futures to find the one where they win.
That is the perfect analogy. The AI plays the war against itself 14 million times. It finds the one strategy that works. Then you take that strategy and teach it to the human commanders. That's sim to ops.
And the feedback loop.
You fight a real skirmish, you take all the data from that, feed it back into the sim, and update the model. That's the loop. So your simulation gets more and more realistic with every real-world event.
And the stated goal is to ensure the U.S. stays ahead of AI-enabled adversaries.
Because if the adversary can simulate the battle better than you, they have already won before the first shot is even fired. They know your moves before you make them.
Okay, let's move to Section 3. The next set of projects falls under intelligence and enterprise. These might sound less sexy than SwarmForge, but I have a feeling they are just as important.
Oh, absolutely. This is the stuff that makes the warfighting possible.
Project 4 is called Open Arsenal.
This is all about manufacturing. It's about the supply chain.
The goal is accelerating the technology to capability pipeline. And the metric here is just wild. Turning intel into weapons in hours, not years.
Okay, so Teching T is technical intelligence. Let's say you capture a new enemy drone on the battlefield. You take it apart, you analyze it, you realize it uses a specific radio frequency to talk to its base.
Okay. In the old world, you'd write a report, send it to the Pentagon, they'd bid out a contract to some big company to build a jammer.
And 3 years later, you get the jammer. By then, the enemy has changed the frequency a dozen times. Open arsenal implies rapid prototyping. You find the vulnerability, you use an AI to design a countermeasure, you 3D print it or flash the code to a software-defined radio, and you have a new weapon in the field in hours.
That requires a totally different industrial base, though. You can't do that with a giant factory in Ohio that takes 6 months to retool.
It implies distributed manufacturing, 3D printers on chips, coding teams embedded with units on the front lines. It's MacGyver at an industrial scale.
Project 5 is Project Grant. I'm guessing named after Ulysses S. Grant.
The grinder. The man who understood total war and attrition.
The focus here is a fundamental shift in deterrence. The text says moving from static postures and speculation to dynamic pressure with interpretable results.
Okay, so a static posture is parking an aircraft carrier in the South China Sea and just hoping it scares the bad guys. It's passive. It's a show of force.
And dynamic pressure, what does that look like?
That implies using AI to constantly probe, to push, to manipulate the adversary's decision-making. Maybe use cyber tools to flicker their power grid for a few seconds just to show you can. Maybe you move assets around in a complex pattern that the AI predicts will cause maximum confusion and paranoia in their command structure.
And the interpretable results part.
That's the science of it. They want to be able to measure deterrence. We did Action X, and our AI model observed that the enemy moved their troops back Y kilometers as a result. They want to turn diplomacy and coercion into an equation they can solve.
Now we move to the enterprise section. This is the back office stuff. Project 6 is GenAI.mil.
This is the democratization piece. This is huge.
The goal is democratizing AI experimentation, and the scale is just massive. It says, putting world-leading models in the hands of 3 million civilian and military personnel at all classification levels.
3 million people. That is basically everyone, every private, every cook, every clerk, every 4-star general.
Why would you do that? Why give the cook at Fort Bragg access to a superintelligence?
Because the cook knows things the general doesn't. Maybe the cook figures out an AI prompt that perfectly optimizes the food inventory for the entire army and saves the government $10 million a year. It's crowdsourcing innovation on a scale never seen before.
But the all classification levels part, that sounds like a security nightmare.
It is a complete security nightmare. How do you put a top secret model on a computer that connects to the unclassified internet? Or how do you take a commercial model like GPT-6 and make absolutely sure it doesn't leak nuclear secrets? That is a massive technical hurdle. But the memo basically says, figure it out. We need it.
Finally, Project 7, Enterprise Agents.
This is my favorite one, honestly, even though it sounds the most boring.
Really, because it sounds incredibly boring. Transforming enterprise workflows.
It is boring. It's travel reimbursements, it's supply chain logistics, it's personnel files. But think about it. What is the #1 complaint of every single soldier?
The paperwork.
The paperwork. The endless, soul-crushing bureaucracy. If you can unleash AI agents to handle the travel vouchers, the pay discrepancies, the housing forms, you aren't just saving money, you are saving morale. You are freeing up thousands and thousands of human hours for actual warfighting.
So an AI agent that says, hey, I see you traveled to base X. I have automatically filed your expense report. The money is already in your account.
Exactly. If they can pull that off, the soldiers will build statues to the Secretary of War.
Yeah.
It would be the biggest quality of life improvement in a generation.
Now, how are they keeping track of all this? We mentioned the monthly demos, but there's more.
Oh yeah. The accountability is really strict. The memo says progress reports go directly to the Deputy Secretary of War every month. And listen to this timeline. Initial demonstration by transition partner users to occur within 6 months of the date of this memorandum.
The memo is dated Jan 9, 2026. So by July 2026, they expect working demos in the hands of actual users.
Yes, for a government program, that is light speed. Usually 6 months is how long it takes to schedule the first kickoff meeting.
And there's a specific role here for the CDAO, the Chief Digital and AI Office.
Right. Their job is to prevent silos. They don't want the Navy inventing some great new AI tool and the Army never hearing about it. The CDAO has to ensure enablers unlocked by these projects are shared department-wide in real time.
Okay, so those are the projects. But projects need resources. They need fuel. That brings us to Section 4, the foundational enablers. The memo lists 3 big ones: compute, data, and talent.
The holy trinity of AI. You can't have AI without these 3. You need the chips, which is compute, the information, which is data, and the brains, which is talent.
Let's start with compute. The strategy talks about leveraging private sector capital, hundreds of billions.
Again, you see them acknowledging the private sector lead. The Department of War can't build data centers faster than Microsoft or Google or Amazon. It's just not possible, so they are going to partner.
It mentions something called the Genesis mission, President Trump's Genesis mission.
This seems to be a broader national initiative that's mentioned in the source material, an American science and security platform. The military is essentially drafting off of that larger effort. It suggests a national push to build sovereign clouds data centers that are physically secure and hardened against any kind of attack.
It says the goal is to establish technical standards so that warfighters have the full benefit of American compute.
Basically, they want the cloud at the tactical edge. They want the full power of a massive data center to be available to a soldier in a muddy trench, probably via a satellite link.
Next enabler, data access. And this section. This section has some serious teeth. I actually gasped when I read the timeline here.
Oh, it certainly does. This is the bureaucratic nuclear weapon I was talking about earlier.
It references the DoD data decrees, and the first sentence is effective immediately.
When a secretary writes effective immediately in a memo, people in the Pentagon usually stop breathing for a second.
The rule is this: denials of data requests must be justified to the undersecretary within 7 days.
Okay, let's explain why that matters so much. In the Pentagon, information is power. If I run the logistics database for the Army, I don't want to share it with the Navy. Why? Because maybe they'll find errors, or maybe they'll use it to argue for a bigger piece of the budget.
So you just sit on it.
You sit on it. When someone asks for data, I just delay. I say, oh, there are security concerns. I say, there are compatibility issues. I bury the request for 6 months until they give up and go away.
And this memo just kills that whole strategy.
It absolutely obliterates it. It says, if you want to say no, you have 7 days to write a memo explaining why, and you have to personally present it to the undersecretary, the number 2 civilian in the entire building.
Nobody wants to have that meeting.
No. You do not want to be the person explaining to the boss why you are hoarding data. The pain of saying no is now infinitely higher than the pain of saying yes. That flips the default setting of the entire department from hoard to share.
It also mentions federated catalogs. Everyone has to update their data catalogs within 30 days.
Which means you can't use data if you don't know it exists. This forces everyone to publish a menu. Here is the data I have. It's like forcing every restaurant in town to put their menu online so you know what's available.
The philosophy is stated very clearly. Our data advantage is meaningless if our developers and operators cannot exploit it.
Simple, true, and historically almost impossible to fix.
The third enabler is talent.
And the secretary believes the best talent will be drawn to this accelerated posture.
Is that actually true, though? I mean, let's be real. OpenAI pays a fresh grad $400,000 a year. The government pays, well, a lot less than that.
Yeah.
Can they actually compete?
On salary? No, never. But the memo argues they can compete on mission. If you go to Google, you optimize ad clicks. If you go to the Department of War, you get to work on SwarmForge. You defend the country. You work on things that actually explode. For a certain type of engineer, that is way cooler than stock options.
The directive is to use special hiring and pay authorities.
So they are trying to close the pay gap, but more importantly, it's about the speed of hiring. It can take a year to get a security clearance and a job offer.
Right.
It says components must provide their hiring plans within 60 days. They need to get these people in their seats now, not next year.
Okay, we've got the projects, we've got the resources, but none of that matters if the culture stays the same. Section 5 is titled Acceleration Expectations, but it's really about the warrior ethos. This is the secretary trying to perform a brain transplant on the entire bureaucracy.
This is the leadership philosophy section, and it's radical.
It starts with refocusing on wartime footing.
Wartime footing, it means.
Yeah.
Act like we are currently in a major conflict. In peacetime, you optimize for efficiency and safety. In war, you optimize for victory, and only victory.
The first expectation is speed wins, and I'm going to quote this because it's so important. Risks of not moving fast enough outweigh the risks of imperfect alignment.
That is a massive shift in thinking. The Pentagon is designed to avoid risk. It's designed to avoid negative headlines about wasteful spending. Dude says, I would rather you waste a little money or break a minor rule and get the AI now than wait 3 years and get it perfect, by which time it's already obsolete.
It says cycle time and adoption rates are now decisive variables.
Think about software updates. If you update your drone software every single day and the enemy updates theirs every month, you win. It's that simple. You are learning 30 times faster. Speed isn't just a nice to have, it is the weapon.
The next expectation is AI model parity. And this directly addresses that outdated tech problem we all know about.
All right, usually the government buys a piece of software and it's frozen in time. You're stuck using Windows XP for 10 years after everyone else has moved on.
The memo notes the unprecedented velocity of these new frontier models. And here is the mandate: a delivery cadence that enables deployment of the latest models within 30 days of public release.
30 days. Just think about the security implications of that. OpenAI releases GPT-7. The Department of War says, we must have GPT-7 running on our classified networks within 30 days.
Is that even technically possible? The vetting process alone? The security scans?
It implies automated vetting. You can't have humans reading every line of code. You need AI to test the AI. If they can't do that, this mandate is going to fail. But it makes speed a primary procurement criterion. If a vendor comes in and says, we can give you the model, but it takes 6 months to install, the government just says, you're fired next.
Then we have wartime approach to blockers.
This is where they introduce the concept of the wartime CDAO and the barrier removal board.
A barrier removal board? That sounds like a committee I'd actually want to join.
It's a monthly board with the power to waive requirements. If a rule is non-statutory, meaning it's just a policy written by some guy 10 years ago, not an actual law passed by Congress, this board can wave a magic wand and make it go away for a project.
It says to approach risk trade-offs as if we were at war.
Again, it's that mindset shift. Does this rule help us win the war? No. Then we ignore it.
The final point in this section is competition centralized planning.
Small, accountable teams win over process.
This sounds very, very Silicon Valley. Move fast and break things.
It is. It's the startup mentality. Don't have a committee of 50 people design a tank, have 5 smart people build a prototype in a garage, and then go test it in the field next week.
And the evaluation metric is continuous field experimentation.
Gathering feedback in days, not years. If the soldiers in the field say, this app sucks, you fix it tomorrow, you don't wait for the Block 2 upgrade that's scheduled for 2028.
Section 6 deals with AI native warfighting and open architectures. This is about how the services, the Army, Navy, Air Force, are supposed to actually integrate all this stuff.
This is where the rubber meets the road. This is policy meeting reality.
It requires every single service chief to designate an AI integration lead within 30 days.
Someone who is responsible. One neck to choke if things go wrong.
And it talks about co-evolution. Capabilities must evolve alongside warfighting concepts.
You can't just give a soldier a new rifle and tell him to use it like it's a spear. If you give them AI, you have to fundamentally change the tactics. Maybe you don't need a platoon of 40 men anymore. Maybe you need 3 men and 50 robots. That's change in warfighting concept.
And there is a clear threat here. Exercises that don't meaningfully incorporate AI will be reviewed for resourcing adjustment.
Resourcing adjustment. That is the politest, most bureaucratic way to say, we will cut your budget that I have ever heard.
So if you run a training exercise and it looks like 1990 dudes with maps and radios, you lose your funding.
You do. You have to adapt or die, financially speaking.
Then there is modular open architectures, or MOSA. Now, open architecture sounds like really boring technical jargon, but I have a feeling this is actually a huge business fight.
Oh, it's a declaration of war against the traditional defense industry.
Explain that.
Okay, so the traditional business model of a defense contractor, let's call them big prime, is vendor lock-in. I sell you a jet, but I also own all the software. If you want to upgrade the radar, you have to pay me. If you want to fix a bug in the code, you have to pay me. I own the sustainment tail. That is where all the profit is.
It's like buying a printer and then being forced to buy this super expensive ink from the same company forever.
It's the exact same business model. Ole says
Oh.
no more. It says component replacement must happen at commercial velocity. And specifically, it says interfaces must be exposed for third-party integration without prime contractor support.
So if I buy a jet from company A, but a small startup, company B, invents a better radar AI.
You can plug company B's AI into company A's jet, and company A can't do anything to stop you.
The big contractors must absolutely hate this.
They despise it. It commoditizes their hardware and destroys their very profitable monopoly on upgrades. But for the government, it's the only way to stay fast. You can't wait 5 years for the prime contractor to get around to updating the software.
Now we need to address Section 7. This is titled Responsible AI and Hard-Nosed Realism.
This is where the political context of the moment becomes very, very explicit.
The tone shifts noticeably here. The section is subtitled Clarifying Responsible AI, Out with Utopian Idealism, In with Hard-Nosed Realism.
So the document is drawing a very clear line in the sand regarding previous policies. It seems to be rejecting what it sees as a safety-first approach that slows things down.
I think we should just read the text directly here so we get it right so everyone listening knows we're just reporting what's in the document.
Good idea.
It says, quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion in social ideology have no place in the DOW.
That is a direct prohibition. It's a very clear statement of values for the department.
It continues, quote, must not employ AI models with ideological tuning that interferes with objectively truthful responses.
This addresses a real technical problem with the big commercial large language models. Commercial models are trained to be nice. They're trained to avoid talking about violence. They're trained to be non-offensive.
Which is great for a customer service bot, but maybe not for a war planning bot.
Exactly. If a general asks an AI, what is the most effective and efficient way to ambush this enemy convoy? And the AI says, I'm sorry, I cannot answer that question, as violence is wrong. That AI is totally useless to the military.
It says models must be free from constraints that limit lawful military applications.
And lawful military applications is the key phrase there. It means lethal force, among other things. They're demanding untuned models, models that don't have the specific moral guardrails that Silicon Valley puts on them for commercial use.
But isn't that technically difficult? The models are trained on the entire internet. They inherit all sorts of biases. How do you strip the ideology without also stripping the intelligence?
That is the core challenge. Defining objective truth in a language model is an incredibly hard problem. But the memo sets a deadline. It says, benchmarks for model objectivity established within 90 days.
And within 180 days, standard any lawful use language must be incorporated into all new contracts.
This forces the big tech companies to make a choice. If Google or Microsoft wants these massive government contracts, they have to agree to remove the filters for the military's version. They have to sell a version of their model that is willing to plan for and participate in killing.
That brings us to the outro, the final synthesis of the document.
It's a powerful close to a really radical document.
The Secretary summarizes the AI-first Department of War. It is a pivot towards speed, commercial partnership, and a relentless war-fighting focus over bureaucracy.
And it calls for a reimagining of everything.
Yes. The text asks the entire workforce to reimagine their workflows as if AI existed when they were created.
That's a great mental exercise. If you were inventing the DMV today, would you have paper forms and long waiting lines? No, of course not. You'd use an app. They want that exact logic applied to missile defense, to logistics, to everything they do.
The memo ends with a very strong, very clear expectation. 2026 will be the year we emphatically raise the bar for military AI dominance.
Emphatically. He isn't asking, he's telling.
So we have walked through the document. We have the one big beautiful bill. We have Swarm Forge, the data decrees, the shift to the Department of War. It is a complete top-to-bottom overhaul.
It is the most aggressive reform attempt I have seen in decades. maybe ever.
But here's the question I want to leave you with as you're listening to this. It's all about the timeline. We are talking about days and months in a building that usually thinks in years and decades.
The ambition is just staggering.
We are in February 2026. The clock is ticking on those 6-month demos. By July, we should start to see if SwarmForge is real or if it's just a slick PowerPoint. So my question to you is this. Can a bureaucracy as old and as massive as the Pentagon actually move this fast? Can they really fire the people who say no? Or will the vestigial barriers fight back and win?
That is the trillion-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The memo is perfect on paper, the logic is sound, but the Pentagon is a machine that is perfectly designed to resist change. This is an irresistible force meeting an immovable object.
And we are going to be watching very closely to see which one breaks. Thanks for diving in with us. Stay curious, stay informed, and we will see you on the next one.
Goodbye, everyone.